The question becomes, have we actually ever seen a Spider-Man film? I need y'all to think about that. Listen, I am back in my studio. I am home for a couple of days, so I should be doing more polished work. I do like these rant reviews, and you guys said you did too. So I have so much to cover when it comes to Spider-Man, Brand New Day, pages of it. I want to get through it. I want to talk about it with you. And spoilers, if you haven't seen it, because man, I'm spoiling as soon as I finish this. Let me tell you, I love this film. That's the TLDR. I think it is the first like true Spider-Man film that I felt in the MCU. I personally haven't felt this way since I watched the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films, and I could tell that DDC, Dustin Daniel Crennan, Dustin Daniel Crenton. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna call him DDC, but I'll put his name right here. I could tell that he was a fan, and I could tell in the opening scene that his goal was to tell us, hey, I got y'all. I know y'all are fans. I know I have to appease to everyone, even just the like media fans. But if you've played the game, if you've read the comic books, if you've watched the cartoons, I am your guy. You are in good hands. And you know what? I trusted him just from that intro alone. Do you hear what I'm saying? Because he was able to not just recreate iconic scenes from comic book covers, the feeling that you get when you play Spider-Man on PS5. That's what I have. I don't know which I'm playing it on. And just the world of New York in the MCU alone. But he was able to capture what makes everyone love Spider-Man, and it's his relatability. Even when he's doing things on a bigger scale, his issues feel relatable, tangible. For something that made the world bigger, right? We were able to see so many iconic villains in the intro. We were able to hear names that may spark, joy if you read the comics, even if you watch some of the shows. But even though they were able to expand this world so big, they managed to kind of make it smaller. I felt like I was watching a neighborhood Spider-Man, and that's what it's about, right? He is the Batman of this universe. Just like Batman, I want to know Gotham, right? I want Gotham to feel like a character. To me, New York felt like a character. And I know they didn't film a lot of this in New York, but guess what? Whatever green screen, blue screen they was using were from shots in New York. The set was New York. It felt like a lot of the actors were New Yorkers, especially that one that Jean Grey spoke through, that black guy, was like, yeah, what's up, New Yorkers? And to me, I put here in my notes, and I think I threaded it as well, it felt like Black Panther for New Yorkers. And I have to say, as a born and bred New Yorker, able to see a Knicks win, being able to live through Mamdani, all of that. Jay-Z just did something in Yankee Stadium, and then to get a Spider-Man movie like this, this must have been what it felt like that year of Kendrick and the Dodgers winning and all that in LA. Because I've always been very proud of being a New Yorker. I've never felt prouder than watching that. And maybe it was a accumulation of all of it. But man, did it feel very New York? Did it make me want to stand up and be like, y'all, I'm from here. Ask me questions if you want. Because some of these places I've been to, I know what they are. I loved it. And it reminded me why everybody wants to say they're from this city, because it's incredible. I used to tell people, like, why are you trying to be from New York? Like, don't you have pride in where you're from? I don't fault y'all anymore. If y'all want to claim it, we still gonna clown you. But I understand at least why you want to do that. This may be the most New York rant I've ever done. But you get what I'm saying? Like, that's what Spider-Man should make you feel. Even when I went to the Knicks parade and just like walking around, I've been seeing people before this film dropped wear Spider-Man clothing and do like good deeds around the city. And that's what he is. He's a symbol. And there are ups and downs for them using New York City as like the landscape for these comic book things. It creates a different type of world. But in this case, I thought it benefited it. It made it feel so real in a very interesting way. And I absolutely loved it. None of the cameos felt cheap, right? Even the Scorpion one where, we get Michael Mando coming in. They've been teasing it for like the last 4 movies. And he comes in and it felt like there were episodes I missed that I knew explained it to me, right? Like when I saw him come in, I already knew what was up. And they used him in such an effective way. I loved it. Even the cameos of like Bruce Banner, I can't even say it was a cameo. The fact that they included him and his research and just his, struggle with the beast, with the Hulk, that's what it's about. And anyone who's watching like X-Men 97 right now, or if you've watched any of the animated DC projects, that's one of my favorite things where people are introduced. You don't need their score to be like, this is where they're from. You don't need a wink to the camera. Everyone is just interacting with them in the world. And maybe we'll get more context later. Maybe you should just know it, but it just fits into this universe as something people know. We know that Bruce Banner has done research on this. We know that he's incredibly intelligent, and we know that his struggle has been with, bringing the Hulk back in. We even see that limiter in She-Hulk. And that's why I love DDC. He clearly watched all of the MCU projects, and as scattered as the last phase has felt, he has managed to pick from that and, take those pieces and make this movie. I do feel like he's been quietly building a world. And the big reason why is because he hasn't explicitly said these things. And honestly, that's how I want the world to be built, right? Since the DDC, honestly, Miss Marvel, which isn't even him, Miss Marvel started to build up the mutant saga. And I really feel like they're throwing away Miss Marvel and those storylines. But DDC is saying, not on my watch. And that's what I'm talking about. Keep us protected. We don't have to throw out the stuff that we used in the last phase. And I think they will. And that's what makes me kind of sad about this film, because I'm afraid that Secret Wars and Doomsday are going to erase everything that they've built to start anew. And sure, that'll be fine. But DDC just showed us that there's so much there that we could be using. And the fact that they not just canceled his show, announced it when this was premiering is very weird to me. It's very weird to me because there's so much here. Building the DDC as this big bad slowly is beautiful. I never got over the brutality that I saw from the DODC, from the DODC in Miss Marvel. Okay, I remember her friend Bruno, the little white boy, was shocked to see how he came out being cute, like, oh, it's me, and they use excessive force on him, and he was shocked because he was a white man with brown people he didn't realize, and just those subtle things that was slowly going up there, and then seeing that there was actually legislation being passed against superpowered beings, we're gonna call them that, in Wonder Man, and then to see Peter bring up inhibitors for there to be, Jean Grey in here, and it's clear that she is a mutant, and them slowly saying that mutants are here, they're around, they've just been keeping it quiet. Man, you feek. And if Charles pulls up and was like, because Charles is not this great, everybody thinks he's this altruistic man. He's petty. I would love to see Charles pull up and be like, we've been hiding and training. And now we feel like there's a hole because the Avengers are a bunch of regular people with guns that we need to fill. I think that'd be fine. When y'all had Thor in them, we was letting y'all rock. But at this point, we are in imminent danger often. New York is always getting blown up. We need to pull forward. And the fact that in the original X-Men, Jean Grey is the last member to join, I think it fits. I think it's perfect. I really do. I wouldn't be surprised if the DODC is responsible for funding Friends of Humanity or plants them in some way in the future, because even though we see them actively fire these people who go one step further, they're always replacing them with someone else, right? It was the woman, I can't remember any of their names, but it was the woman in Miss Marvel, and then boy who was tracking Wonder Man, who was doing nothing wrong. And then now Tramell Tillman in this one, they keep on, it's a Hydra, right? And there's a reason for that, because whatever they are instilling in these workers are leading to this type of program. And they're Tremel Tillman's character was not doing this program like under wraps. It was very open. It was documented, and I think that that's important. I do want to say, you guys, this is again a loose, because I know I'm saying Tremel Tillman and you're about to complain in my comments. This is for me to get out my thoughts, and then I'm gonna do a bunch of like videos, like really honing in, and they'll be better, cleaner. Leave me alone right now, okay? This is about Spider-Man, and Spider-Man is about love and acceptance. And even if you forget people's names or can't say them right, we're here to be in love. We're here to talk about what we love, which is Spider-Man, New York, the DODC, and old MCU. Because that's how I felt watching this. Like, this is how I felt when I initially was watching the MCU. Like, it felt like a world that was building out and hinting towards other things that I saw. And that's what I miss about the MCU. It had an identity outside of like, this structure that they've set up, this formula that they set up. It felt uniquely like a Spider-Man film, but it also felt like an MCU film. And I haven't felt this way, honestly, even in the Spider-Man films since before, honestly, maybe a little bit before Infinity War. But definitely the end of that was Infinity War, where, they weren't letting people rock. Though even Nia DaCosta talked about the Marvels and how she didn't have the opportunity to really like do what she wanted to. I could tell that DDC got to do what he wanted to, and we're better for it. It is insane to me to see how Spider-Man is cool with the DODC, especially after the way that they treated him. And maybe because it's someone different, but the way that they treated him and his homies and blocked them from going to college after he was revealed, I would have always like kept him at a 10-foot pole. And he was being all buddy. And that's because of the nature of who Spider-Man is. But it definitely really drives home how Spider-Man can unintentionally be an op. I'm going to say unintentionally, because I know y'all going to be like, Spider-Man's not an op, Spider-Man's not. He's unintentionally an op. And if I was Jean Grey, I wouldn't trust him, right? He signed the Accords. He made this inhibitor it's supposed to be for himself, but guess how I saw it? For you to put it on us. You get what I'm saying? And I loved, and then he's working with the DODC. Why would anyone ever trust Spider-Man? He seems like, if the X-Men are supposed to be an allegory for disenfranchised and minority, he is the model minority, right? And I'm gonna do it in another video. I'll get the episode exactly, but there is an episode of the cartoon and the Amazing Spider-Man that crosses over with the original X-Men, the animated series, where Spider-Man is mutating similar to this story into like the Spider-Man. And he's afraid that he's becoming a mutant, and he rolls up to Charles Xavier to the mansion. And I mean, the disrespect, the fear, the way he's talking to them, the way that he's rejecting the thought of becoming a mutant really fits into this, where he is so afraid of being anything other than, a human and all that stuff, that like, it leads to some problematic thinking, and it's fear. Okay, I know you guys are, he loves mutants, he's cool with mutants. I'm not saying that. I'm saying is, it's just like I got white friends who, love that I'm black, who accept that I'm black. Would they choose to be black? I don't know. Like, we got a lot going for us, but would they be able to handle the struggles, the strife that I go through being a black woman? I don't think they know either, and I don't think they would want to choose to be that. You know what I'm saying? So if they find out, I don't know, their skin starts turning brown, they found out they're like an eighth black, and all of a sudden they got vitiligo. I don't know how they treat them. This is a rant that makes no sense, but it does in my head. And I think for some of y'all who get it. Either way, he's been on a way that I wouldn't really trust him as a mutant, and I get why Jean didn't trust him and was so mean to him. Man, Jean Grey was such a good foil, and I loved all of the changes that they made to her backstory. I had a conversation with a couple of fans who were like, they did so much, they changed so much with her and Sarah. Personally, I liked it. When it comes to Jean Grey in multimedia, I'm not talking about in the comics, because recently they've been updating her, but even in the comics, she's always been written as, I mean, people call her a Molly Sue or whatever, but she's, to me, has never been written with the autonomy that I wish she had. And a lot of the tropes that we say are problematic with women stem at Jean Grey, right? Her not being able to handle her powers, her being taken advantage of, her being just, there are so many things. Even the Phoenix Saga, which is iconic and beyond reproach, right? She has this really weird opening to it with the Hellfire Club where she's like a sex slave. I mean, there's a lot with Jean Grey that we can critique. And I feel like there was a correction in a way that I like with her character where she has autonomy over her power. There's anger with the way that she's being treated. And this is before there's actually like real actual hate against the mutants. Like we're seeing it fester a little bit, like I said in Wonder Man. But it's not, Friends of Humanity ain't outside yet. You get what I'm saying? Like it's not on the level that we see in X-Men yet. And I love that they're building her to be like a Hotep. I love Hotep Jean. I love that Sarah is supposed to be the ultimate ally, right? She's her human sister. And once again, she is kidnapped often. Sometimes she's used as a martyr to show like what happens when the allies die. I love that she was a badass telepath too. Fuck it. Like let's do it. And I think it fits. And this is what I mean. It fits into what the 616 has built. Some of y'all gonna say this is Universe 10999. They've claimed it was 616. So now it is 616 unless it changes in Infinity War. I'm sorry. Just like Bruce Banner did in his class when he was like, what's my answer to y'all logic? Hulk smash. They have made a decision. This is where we're at, okay? I will say, some of the stuff that Jean Grey did, a little unforgivable. There is a debate right now on whether or not she killed people. Apparently, her kill count was at 0. I think that I want to call bullshit on that, even though that canonically we can, because they're saying that's what it is. When she stopped everyone in their tracks, there's no way no one died. They showed like this kid like violently getting in a crash on his bike. You're telling me no one got a head concussion and died? Nobody from just like abruptly stopping? Nobody was doing something, jumping, or was like walking in place, tripped and fell? Come on. I don't know. Or even like, I felt like she took over these soldiers and they shot each other. Although I guess I have to watch it again. Someone told me that they shot their legs. I don't know. Oh, that old man who jumped in front of the car, he didn't die? No one died? I don't know. But even if you could forgive her for that, I will never forgive Jean Grey. I'm sorry. Even though I love what your character has become, I'm never going to forgive you for what you did to Bruce, okay? Now, I understand. She does not understand. Oh, also, I'm going to talk about that in a second, but she doesn't understand the complexity of what she did with Bruce, with him losing control. But I watched the mental work that Bruce Banner has gone into with the Hulk that he's still struggling with. And that's why he's choosing to teach his class in human form instead of, Professor Hulk, because he's always afraid of losing control. The death and destruction that's in his wake when he becomes the Hulk, it haunts him. And if you guys have ever watched the original Hulk series, which is honestly the best Hulk media you can consume, he barely turns into the Hulk, right? I mean, he does, but it's more about the aftermath and the isolation that comes from it. And I felt that in here. You know what I mean? The second thing that I stopped and was like, I'll talk about later that I think Jean did that was unforgivable is she kind of sexually assaulted MJ because she took over her body and kissed this man against her will. Something that MJ was like, yo, I don't know you, and something that Peter even felt guilty about later and was like, hey, I kissed you without your consent, which she acknowledged and moved on. You see, there's nothing wrong, man. If you guys, it is such an important, I had to, take a second, but it is so important to address consent in this way because yes, there are moments that men do things against women's consent. And I mean, I'm sure it's the opposite way, but I want to talk about the more prominent point. And, people get so defensive about it. I think that's the whole plot point of Obsession, right? A huge plot point of Obsession, the film. And that men don't want to be considered a creep or stuff like that, or reflect on the fact that they did something that is against their consent. And in this, Peter recognized, like, I kissed this girl without her consent, and I should acknowledge it. And he did. And she internalized it. And guess what happened from there? He got more information that helped him solve a lie. I love Detective Spider-Man in this. I thought it was incredible. Maybe because I'm a big Batman fan. And like I said, this is Batman for Marvel to me. But I love that. Honestly, I love the reflection that came from it. Like her saying MJ would hate that really shows how this parasocial relationship that Peter has built with MJ and Ned from the since then has really pushed him. Some people say, oh, he never knew who MJ was. I think he forgot. And because he hasn't spent time with them in years. And I think he started to build up this like beautiful life, this fairy tale of what it would be like to reconnect. And when he got it, he couldn't see it. And honestly, as an audience member, I didn't see it for a second either. When they were swinging, I found it a little weird that MJ wasn't like freaking out. And to me, I immediately wrote it off. I was like, oh, she got over it because she's older. And there are things like that that could kind of push you in. That helped me understand why Peter wouldn't recognize that this was not MJ. And him just like being able to have the movie moment, right? Because the moment where they kiss is, to me, reminded me of that moment with Kirsten Dunst and Tobey Maguire in Spider-Man 1 when they have the kiss. And it's just like so cinematic and beautiful. You want it to be true. And I mean, kudos to them for being able to incite that. I love the horror aspect of it. I loved seeing Jean, the way she would inhabit people's bodies, like the possession and the choreography behind that was so cool and honestly iconic. I've never seen telepathy and just the thing that he built around so great. And I know in the weeks to come, we're going to see so many TikToks of people doing that. And I think that's so freaking cool. I saw a lot of people complain about Peter winning with Talk New Jitsu. How else was he about to win? I genuinely, Jean is an Omega level mutant and they scaled her properly without having to nerf her, right? She got through that inhibitor on her own and she was essentially unstoppable. And it was Peter's indomitable will that got her through it. It was his relationship with Aunt May that got her through it. And I love that. I love that he was like, go ahead and look in my mind. I got some hot shit in there. And because he knew if she met May, he knew that he could see someone lost in a way that he was lost. And he was like, I can help you here. I mean, 10s across the board. And y'all didn't complain when the Thunderbolts went with Talk New Jitsu because they were fighting Sentry. He was erasing people. And they said, yo, we got to get in his mind and talk to him about being depressed and tell him he got friends too. That's essentially what he did. Like, apologized, said, hey, there's a world for you here. And then they moved on. And you know what? I'm glad. I'm glad that Spider-Man didn't beat Jean Grey because I honestly, and y'all would have been mad too. Truly. If Spider-Man beat Jean Grey, y'all would be tight. Like I said, she's an Omega level mutant. Okay? Yeah. Yeah. That's the only way she could win. I mean, I guess either that or if Frank killed her. Is that what y'all wanted? Jesus. I don't know what y'all want from her. Okay? Don't let me have this conversation again with y'all. I have here Spider-Man should grow with you. I think that's why we are still loving Tom Holland's Spider-Man. You know, a lot of people associate Spider-Man being in high school, but honestly, a lot of the arcs that people reference, a lot of things that we like about Spider-Man are from his college years and his years as a young adult. The reason why a lot of us love Spider-Man is that we're introduced to him when we first start comics, right? As a teenager, and then he grows with us, right? He goes to college, he gets married, and he has to grapple with balancing that, with having a job that he loves and feels is important, and still remembering that he has to pull himself away from that job. And as a full-time creator, I empathize with that all the time. And no, I'm not Spider-Man saving people, but honestly, yeah, maybe. You know what I mean? Like, for a lot of people, our content creators, especially with like film talk, we are people's escape. We are your friends. We are the ones that you chat with. And there's a considerable amount of pressure to put out things in timely manner, to respect people's opinions, and to do things in a way that is appropriate for our audience. And I know Spider-Man feels that. And because we are chronicling our life and our experiences and the things that we love, it is hard to separate ourselves sometimes. And I think that's what makes this beautiful. I think that's what makes this story beautiful, is that it's relatable, especially to me who grew up with Spider-Man. I'm seeing Spider-Man go through things that I went through as I was a young adult, and I was transitioning through my life. And for those of you who read comics and are in their 30s, I have to say they're still doing that in the comic books, and that's why the Ultimate Spider-Man run by Hickman was so good. I can't believe they canceled this universe, but I mean, Marvel loves to cancel good shit all the time. But what made it so relatable is he was a grown blood. He was a grown man who was missing something. And for a lot of us, that's how we felt about Spider-Man. Like, we were missing him because we couldn't relate to him anymore. And here he is, a grown blood with children, a mortgage, a job, people that relied on him, and just watching him navigate it through that is what makes Spider-Man so accessible. And oh my gosh, it's beautiful. I do have to talk about his relationship with Mary Jane and Ned. Now, in Peter's head, his love story was with Mary Jane, but truly his love story was with Ned. Okay, Mary Jane was blank on Spider-Man. She was not tripping about Spider-Man. Ned was. Right? Like, even if his head was empty on it, he still revolved his life and giving him things that helped him, right? Creating a full app to track him. Like, he became obsessed with Spider-Man in a way that Mary Jane couldn't. And it wasn't until the moments that Peter was with Ned, playing Legos, that we saw his personality come back. And I'm not saying that him and Mary Jane are not in love. I'm saying they're not in love the way that Ned is in love with him. And that's why he was able to get his memory back from this handshake. That is the true love story. That is the true love's first kiss. And you could say it's because he has some magical ability. I like to think the magical ability was friendship. Okay, he was friends. Like, MJ pulled up years after they were friends. You feel me? And I'm not saying that they're friends. I'm saying MJ and his connection will never be the same as his and Ned's. And I was kind of disappointed that he didn't reveal himself that day. You know what I'm saying? The way that MJ encouraged him to. And that's what I loved about MJ. The way that they characterized her was phenomenal. It was phenomenal. I mean, even her having autonomy, right? Her reading the letter and not being like, I love you, I remember her. Her being like, it's too late. You should have admitted it 4 years from now. How could you keep that from me? Do you really love me? Like, I'm still in danger. And that's my thing. I remember talking during the Amber debacle for Invincible, where people are like, these heroes are just trying to save these people by not telling them their identity. They're still involved. They're still involved, and you're taking away consent, especially if you're involved in it. He did start to interject his life back with MJ. When you involve yourself with her again, you are putting her in danger, whether she knows who you are or not. So it is your responsibility to tell them once you realize you want to be close to them. And it is prickly. It is hard. And then that's where the question becomes, can a superhero have loved ones? Can they live that type of life? And it's like, maybe not. Now, when you choose to become a superhero, that's something that a lot of superheroes to this day are grappling with. And I'm glad she called him out on it. Like, I'm not the one you love. You did put me in this position. And, like, this is a beautiful letter. You have to rebuild this relationship together. And I don't love you. I don't know who you are. Banged with it. And I also love that, just like Bruce Banner, when she saw the tech for the inhibitor, she was appalled. And I really want to see not just her say, but the way that Peter will inevitably handle in the upcoming, hopefully, mutant saga, the fact that he is responsible for the tech that will be made for like inhibitor collars and probably used in the long run to help build sentinels. He's going to be the source of that. Him and Bruce Banner, right? And Bruce Banner already got guilt. Peter gonna get more. And I wonder how she goes. She gonna be like, well, I told you that was crazy. And the fact that you brought it with you and left it at the DODC is why they have it now. And some people may be like, oh, that's crazy. Like, why was it Peter that sourced it? Because we don't have as many characters in the MCU as we do in the comic books, right? We don't have as many installments. It means something that Peter is the one to make it, especially in response to him rejecting himself. And as I mentioned before, that is a relationship that he always grapples with. So I liked it. I liked it. Do we think Tremel Tillman is going to become Mr. Sinister? Maybe. Maybe. I think it's more interesting, like I said, to have a revolving door, and they're just building up on us, or on these people, these superpowered beings, these super intelligent beings. They're just taking advantage of them working with tech and figuring things out, because that's how the world works, truly. Honestly, I wanted to finish this off with Frank and the Hulk, which are two big cameos that became parts of the story in a way that I think made this world feel real. The chemistry between both those men and Peter Parker, incredible. Starting off with Bruce. Bruce loved having someone who was genuinely interested in his work, and then was appalled in his work. And I really love that they're establishing that relationship. I'm sure Bruce has some words for Peter, and the responsibility that goes beyond his powers, right? With his mind and what he creates, and the way that he decides to police the streets of New York, right? Because we saw that the DODC did have weapons against Spider-Man, and that was a beautiful reminder that, like, you think you wanted them, you're not. At any given time, they're going to take what you have, or they are ready to take you down. And the only reason why you're so goody-goody, you're in such good standing, is because you don't do a lot of damage and you make their job easier. And because they can't tell that you're a person of color. You guys could get mad that I said it. The DODC was going buck on Miss Marvel, who's doing the same thing, and on Wonder Man, who, yeah, I mean, he blew up something, but they was buck on him before then when he had no incident. So I think that's very interesting. When it came to Frank, I feel like Frank is the best when he is a mirror. You know, he's a mirror to the heroes, to the protagonists, because he is crazy. And we saw that in his film. Things are not right up here. He is gone. He's long gone. And he's acknowledging that. He's trying to accept who he is, the curse that he's been giving. And I love that. And he was funny. It's the most New York I've seen him and Tom Holland. I'm sure they got linguist coach. Actually, no, not John Berthal. He always feels like Northeastern. But the accents were very good, and the interactions felt very New York to me. My favorite scene was him shooting at the Hulk and screaming like, ah, the whole time, because you do have to hype yourself up when you're fighting the Hulk, because clearly you're going to lose that fight. But yeah, I love the interactions with them. I can't wait to see more. I love this film. I loved everything about it, from the visuals of the suit being so red and blue and being real, being able to see the imperfections of it, to the way that they weaved in the greater universe. Yelena, having meetings and saying I'm the head of the Avengers, and acknowledging, what was going on, and being like, it's not quite big enough for us to interject in, which honestly, truly, until the ending, it was just a mystery, right? If the Avengers would have came in, it would have came in hot. To the VMAX reveal, what a bait and switch. Like everyone else, thought it'd be Venom or something like that. And for it to just be like her acknowledging her last view, it was so dark and twisted and beautiful in a perfect way to give, motivations with Jean Grey. Loved it. Everything about this film was incredible. And the reason why I love Spider-Man, and it reminded me why I loved the MCU in the first place. So I'm going to go ahead and give it, you guys know, 5 out of 5 Freaky Flames. I can't think of anything else to give this. Please tell me your thoughts. Like I said, there are probably things I missed, but don't trip. I'm going to be doing a bunch of videos this week that I could really hone in and talk about what I've seen, because there's so much to talk about. There's so many through lines that we've seen, and that's what makes the MCU so special. Do I think this is all going to matter? I don't know. And I think that's also what makes me sad about this film, is that I don't know if Doomsday is going to erase all of this. I don't know if this is just this concealed, contained story that I'm very much enjoying, but for the moment, I'm going to enjoy it and move on. So please tell me what your thoughts are. Let me know in my comments below.